Thank you, Peter. Thank you for the welcome and for the invitation. I have to say that I enjoyed last night's dinner, not just the wine that I consumed, but the fact that I had the opportunity to meet your executive. And I think you're particularly well served by your executive. What you have to do now, of course, is move it out from having a great executive to activity in the field, and that's a difficult part. Most of you will know, as I know, that starting a new political party is not easy. You'll have already experienced that, standing candidates, as I understand it, in the last election under a different label, but more recently at the two federal by-elections. So, you know what you're up against, and I thought what I'd do is this afternoon is try to do two things really. Raise some of the issues for your consideration, issues that I believe any new political party should at least think about. My bias, or my obvious bias, or my approach will inevitably show, but that doesn't really matter. In the end, you need to decide for yourselves what your approach will be. There is often no absolute right or wrong answer. I'll outline, secondly, what I might do, what approach I might take if I sort of had my time again, starting from scratch in New Zealand and starting a new party, a sort of strategy that might avoid some of the pitfalls that we fell into and are still falling into from time to time. Some of the issues that you might like to think about. I think the first point is you need to know what you're standing for. This is absolutely vital. If you don't know what you stand for, if you can't put it down on a piece of paper, one page, then it's likely that nobody else out there is ever going to know what you stand for. I think any new political party, and I think this is why we took off so well initially in New Zealand, it has to be conviction driven. Effective leaders, effective political parties, they stand for something, and if you don't stand for something, then you fall by the wayside. Beliefs also what make things happen. Leadership is about a sense of direction, and you need to be able to communicate that vision. When we started ACT, and within 2 years we had 14,000 members and supporters. Not everyone wanted to join a political party, so we gave them the opportunity to pay their $20 and become a supporter. And I think they joined in such numbers, which is unusual in politics today, because we had a vision, and they believed that we can make a difference to New Zealand, that the sort of policies that we were advocating would help. And it was much more policy and vision orientated than personality. It probably helped that we had Derek Quigley, who'd been a former National Party cabinet minister, and myself as joint leaders of the party, but nevertheless the main reason was that we had a vision that people could relate to. I think it's important when you're starting a new party never to compromise your beliefs. You'll often be tempted to do that when you're not making progress, and you might go to the sensational approach. It can work a little bit in the short term, but it often costs you big time in big time. I mean, as I said, we had around 14,000 members and supporters. We got, in the first election, we got just over 6%, so I think we had 7 or 8 members at that stage. Due to our membership over the first 3 years, we had no members, and we managed to get 14. Was probably down to 3,000 or 4,000, and I think the main reason was that we lost sight of the vision, we lost sight of talking about that and we chase the odd scandal that's always going on in Parliament, and play the populist game in order to be on the front page of the newspaper, and that can be rather tempting. Other questions I think you need to ask yourself: who are you trying to appeal to? Are you only aiming to get 3 or 4%? If you're only aiming for 3 or 4% ever, you might take one approach. On the other hand, if you want to be a much larger party, then your approach could be somewhat different. How do you want to be seen? I think it's important. What's the top of the mind reaction to the party? Our problem with ACT at the moment is we're seeing those representing big business, we're right-wingers, and that's not really where we want to be. And in some ways it depends where you want to be, depends on the tone of your message. With ACT, we found 80% of our voters are men. We just don't appeal to the women because we're seen as too hard. And a lot of it is in the tone, and a lot of it is in what you emphasise. I'll come back to some of that. Your credibility, I think, rests on these sort of factors and whether or not the public even listens to you. You have to ask yourself how you differentiate yourself from all the other political parties. When we began, we differentiated ourselves, and we're still differentiated from all the other political parties, because essentially what we say is they want to take your money and spend it for you. We want to leave it with you so that you can buy those goods or products yourself in areas like education, health and welfare. And that's a big point of difference. Not easy to get through because the public don't understand that. They've had 60 years of Big Brother taking their money and spending it for them, and they're not quite sure how the other process is going to work. So how do the people, the future, the average people succeeding for themselves isn't the easiest message necessarily to get across. So some of the things you need to think about, and you'll have different problems here in a minute, is the wasted vote scenario. Now, I know you've got preferential voting here, but even so, that's likely to be strong. If I vote for the Liberal Democrat, aren't I in practice wasting my vote? Now, I know there is preferential voting, and that should enable you to overcome that. But the 5% hurdle in New Zealand is huge, or has been until recently for ACT. I mean, if we don't get 5%, we can get 4.85% and have no MPs, unless you hold a seat, which we do now, but in the early years we didn't. And lots of people who would have voted for us frankly didn't, because they weren't absolutely sure that we were going to get to the 5% threshold. So that's an issue. The inbuilt conservatism of people who hold on to what they have, even when they know it doesn't work. And that's a big issue for us in advocating change in health, in education and welfare. People know that the system is basically rotten, that they have, but they still hold on to it because it's the only thing they know and the only thing they know. The media attention for a party like yours is likely to be virtually non-existent. And you have to understand that, and you have to take it into account. But we've got 5 MPs, and it's terribly difficult to get noticed even when you're in Parliament with 4 or 5 MPs, and so much harder for you. So building your membership one-on-one, selling the message that way is pretty important.